Why do you say that theme is misunderstood?
Well, I hear writers talk about theme all the time, or they're talking about themes, all the themes in my work. I think what they're often talking about are issues. There's a difference between issue and theme, and I think it's important to understand the distinction because homelessness is an issue. It's not a theme. Or, you know, the economy is an issue. It's not a theme. Themes are primal. They're primal desires, like connection, meaning, purpose, success, justice, survival, and themes are how the protagonist's dilemma gets explored or gets dramatized. All right, and so when you think in terms of theme, you're thinking in terms of some kind of powerful desire and false belief. So an issue is not a theme.
But within those issues, though, there could be a theme.
Absolutely.
So if someone, like, let's take the movie Into the Wild or the book by John Krakauer.
Yeah.
Excellent film. Haven't read the book, but so that was about belonging. And so he goes into the wild and lives in this school bus. So you could say he's homeless by choice there. And it was because he felt he didn't belong. And he only felt he belonged within sort of the world of nature, you know, up in Alaska.
Yeah, right.
So
belonging or acceptance,
sure,
which are sort of in the same ballpark. But yeah, absolutely. And the dilemma, it's just so elegantly rendered. The dilemma is that in order to belong, it could cost me my life, which it does.
Right.
And so he finally he's being true to himself. He's following his inner desire. So is that movie a tragedy?
I mean, personally, I feel it is. I know a lot of people have wanted to retrace his steps, Christopher McCandless.
Really?
Yeah, there's all these YouTube videos. In fact, I think they had to remove the school bus because so many people were trying to go out there to either pay homage to him or experience what maybe he experienced in his last days. I don't know.
Well, that's interesting because you know, when you think of tragedy, you think of the protagonist not getting the lesson, or getting it too late. That's an interesting movie because I never really thought about that, but I'm not sure that is a tragedy. At least the way we experience it is that he was true to himself, and while it cost him his life, there's something he draws on the board at the end. I can't remember. He writes something. I can't remember what that is.
Right. I mean, I know he felt a lot of pressure, at least in the film. Again, I haven't read the book, but that he felt this pressure and he kind of renounced anything materialistic.
Oh, that's right.
And went on the road. And he met these different people. I know there was a great, Catherine Keener character.
Vince Vaughn.
Right. And so he kind of met these different fringe people.
Yeah.
And there's this one scene where he's maybe in LA and he's kind of dirty and scruffy and he's like staring at a bar and he sees people his age and there's just this look on his face. It's part anger, it's part disgust, but it's also part feeling almost as if he had been left out and he'd been sort of wronged.
You know, this is where I think the process of making a story is going from the general to the specific, and I would have to watch the movie again, but I want to talk about something. Is it about belonging or is it about connection? You know, and this is where this is why I always say it's the process of building a story is about going from the general to the specific, because at the beginning you might go, I think the story is about belonging. And this is why we want to gently always be asking ourselves, what's this thing about? What's this thing about? Because as storytellers, I feel like we're trading in metaphor. We're always looking for the thing that tells us what this thing is about. We're all and we do it unconsciously. But I think I think our job is to become conscious of the things that we're unconscious of. I think that might have been a segue. But what I was going to say was, when you work with story structure, the primal desire, which it might be connection, informs the structure questions. I work with I have these structure questions that I give my students that are experiential questions. And the questions or the questions, the structure questions inform the primal desire. And what I mean by that is you might think it's about belonging, but the more you start to inquire into these structure questions, you go, wait a second, it actually starts to feel like it's about the desire for connection. Like when you just described him looking into the window, the bar, I'm hearing he's searching for a connection, and he finds the connection with nature. And so this is why creating a story is about going from the general to the specific, because you're marrying the wildness of your imagination, which is connecting to that primal desire. Is it connection? Is it belonging? Is it the truth? With the rigor of story structure, which is these structure questions. And the more you work with both of them simultaneously, I think I'm answering a previous question now, the more the story starts to cohere, but in a non-linear way. You know, because the structure questions are experiential questions. And so character suggests plot. When you start to connect to your characters, you know, like for example, let's say you go, well, in the midpoint, what's his name?
Christopher McCandless.
Christopher McCandless. Mm-hmm. Let's say the midpoint is where your protagonist experiences temptation between what they want and what they need. And something happens, an event happens, your protagonist responds by committing fully to their goal. And so you think to yourself, what is this temptation with regards to connection? This temptation with regard, it's coming back to me. I think there's a scene where he's returned to his family in some way. And I have a feeling, I could be wrong about this, it's been a long time, but that I could go back to the familiar, or I could go forward into the unknown. I'm pretty sure there's a scene where he's with his family and then he says, no, I can't do it. And that's the temptation. And that's a critical moment. This is the difference between a lot of the writing books. They talk about the midpoint is where there's a what's the term? There's a reversal. I have no idea how to write a reversal. It's a head word. Do you follow? And so if I'm required to write or manufacture a reversal, I'm going to get stuck. But if I think in terms of temptation, if I think in terms of character suggesting plot, then I just imagine the protagonist experiencing temptation, and then a situation starts to emerge to support that experience.
Right, and I don't remember if he had already kind of been on the road and met sort of these different fringe people and felt accepted. And I know some
Wasn't there something about him going back to, he was going to go back to school or something?
Something like that, yeah. And I think it was where, you know, he was going to be given a car and different things.
That's right. He was almost being maybe bribed in a way or something. Come back to the status quo. And there was something about him that
didn't belong.
Rejected.
Yeah.
And on some level, it's a tragedy. What was heartbreaking about it was that it seems like I don't want to say that. Because you get the sense that he was really loved by his parents. It was such a beautiful movie because there was. It was almost like the parents misunderstood him, but at the same time deeply loved him. And it would have been a very different movie if the parents just simply were controlling. But you didn't get the sense they were controlling. You got the sense that there was some kind of not really understanding who you are, and we have your best interest at heart, and why can't you follow this path? There was something really emotionally sort of sophisticated about that film.
But is the desire to belong and to be connected, aren't those the same thing?
I think they're very close. I think belonging and acceptance and connection and truth and freedom, they're all sort of in the same ballpark. But when you start to investigate the structure questions, one of these words starts to bubble up to the top, and it's almost like a feeling tone. you start to recognize that, oh, wait a second, this story is about belonging from the very beginning to the very end, or this story is about connection. They're not exactly the same.